because you view the world in such a specific way, but when you realize there's alternatives, that like that's not what everybody believes, it's not objective in any way, it's a perspective. It's just because it's so subconscious, you can't really realize it unless you're very self-aware. And that's one of the main things I wanted to speak out against on my channel, was how much social media influences you. And the way I've kind of framed it is that social media takes your free will.
B, welcome to the World XP podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain. You want to tell the people who you are and what you do and kind of what the things that you're interested in, and maybe set the stage for the conversation?
Yeah, so I'm coming on this podcast as a YouTuber, I guess. That's the main thing that I'll be talking about. I have almost 14,000 subscribers. My channel name is called Bees Corner, and I focus now more on psychology and philosophy. I do little live streams where I learn about varying topics in those fields. But the way I got started out, I actually was just recording car videos randomly when I was like 16. People liked my thoughts, they shared my thoughts, and that's how I basically got most of my subscribers. But recently, I've been pivoting towards something that I think will really help people in the long term rather than like make them feel less alone in the short term, you know? That's basically it.
That makes sense. Um, the question from the last guest, I'm just thinking about other questions that I want to ask you, but the question for the last guest is, um, did you believe in something 5 years ago that you've changed your belief on that? It doesn't
Well,
necessarily have to be 5 years ago, but something that you held, like belief that you held very firmly that you've changed on.
oh, yes, yes. So many beliefs because I'm just so young. I'm almost 19. I turned 19 in a month. Uh, 5 years ago, I would have been
Doesn't
14.
have to be 5 years ago.
Yeah, but definitely. I think the biggest one is probably the fact that college is necessary. Hello?
Gotcha.
Okay. I don't know what happened. But
That's all
yeah,
right.
probably that college is the stable path. That was the biggest change in beliefs because I had been told that my entire life, but I think with changes in the economy and just opening up my mind to alternate paths, I realized that it's not really necessary as necessary as other people were presenting it to me. And I have been a very, very academic person my entire life. Like I was always at the top of my class in elementary, in middle school, kind of, and then in high school, I was also the top of my class all 4 years. And so, especially me, I had been told the idea that college is definitely necessary for you as somebody who's so academic. And then I went ahead and surprised everyone and was like, I don't want to go to college. At least not now. I'm not against it. I'm not anti-college, but I don't like the long-term vision of it, if that makes sense, but go ahead.
Yeah, long-term version of college, you mean, as like an institution?
Yes, because the main reason, well, it is the institution part, but also the main reason people go to college is for a career, 40-year long, let's get in there, let's get all our health insurance benefits from this major company, and I wanted to create something for myself, and I mean entrepreneurship in a way. I have this need to self-express. I really do. I use that to guide all of my life decisions. And going down this path of career-oriented mindset would prohibit that self-expression. And I understand it's kind of, I think people will hear that and think immediately, oh, she's so naive. She doesn't understand how the world works. Yeah, sure, I'm 19. You got me there. But I think idealism is important. I think it should be used to guide you in some way. And so that's what it was.
What is what has it been like for you the last so like when I'll say like when active turmoil so like to me being born in the mid 90s when I was little had 9/11 and then the 2008 financial crisis and then like a couple of years later, Benghazi, a few other things, crazy things. Then Trump, the whole political world gets blown up. Um, Figuratively, NSA, don't come get me, please. And then COVID, and now here we are. And I think that, like for me, just like watching event after event, including Iraq War and all these things, it feels very strange to just have lived through kind of a crumbling of kind of the institution like you mentioned for college. For you being slightly younger, like I can't really imagine what it would have been like to go through, especially the last 10 years being 10 years, like I was old enough to have thoughts and to pay it, like not that you didn't have thoughts when you were that age, but you know what I mean, like old enough to be
Very
paying
few.
well, I mean,
Like,
I still have very few thoughts, so there's that too. But like
okay.
old enough to be relatively like paying attention and have kind of like experience some of the stuff that happened on college campuses at that time. Like what's it been like for you having just like you don't know anything other than the environment that exists now, which is like to me insane. Like what's it been like for you to grow up in that?
I mean, I think a big part of it was the internet. The internet is kind of bringing new ideas to people. I talk about this on my channel a lot, like the it's such a buzz term, but like postmodernism. There's so many different ideas and perspectives being displayed on the internet, and I have literally grown up in that. And so to me, it's kind of like I don't look at all of these different perspectives and think which one is the right one. I think which one do I want to have? What is the preference? And so, um, the way that relates to, I'm sorry, what was the question? I got so
No,
distracted.
it's just like all the social
It
media and
ties
stuff.
in.
Like all the
Oh
social
yeah.
media and stuff, like I wasn't really exposed to that very broadly until I was like 16, 17, and like I can imagine being exposed to that. Like the kids that I train, some of the kids that I train, I'm like, dude, you spend too much time on TikTok. Like stop immediately. Like I
Oh
can't,
yes,
but I
the
also
brain
know that it
rot.
can be exactly very addictive in some ways and just like everything is turmoil and brain rot and scrolling and like I feel
Mhm.
like I was lucky to not have been exposed to that when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's just like what's it been like? Because there's been a lot of changes since like when my parents grew up and your parents grew up and they're like, okay, things were kind of a certain way. And then they kind of still were that way for a while. Like even for their kids, it was like, okay, it's kind of still that way. But for basically the next generation younger than me, so you guys, like that's been the first one where it's been like, nope, everything's different now. So
Mhm.
you're kind of forging your own path in a way.
100%. I think social media has definitely had I mean, social media and the economic state of America has had a an influence on that for sure. But yeah, growing up with social media, I mean, I remember the first social media I downloaded was literally in fifth grade. I got Musical.ly, like everybody in my class had it. They were doing like dances on Musical.ly. I was also a dancer at the time, so it was like perfect. And it did start off as a fun little way to connect. I even got Snapchat, only added my friends and stuff like that in sixth grade. Seventh grade or eighth grade, I got like Instagram, and that's where things started to get really bad. I also got TikTok at that time. It was also COVID. COVID for me happened when I was in eighth grade. So all of my energy was just fixated on the internet and TikTok, Instagram, social media. And so that's not good for you. That's not good for a young developing mind. And I talk about this a lot on my channel now. I did end up quitting social media my sophomore year. Since then, I've gotten it again, like on and off. I think at one point I got it for like 3 months, but I've always been disconnected from it since I quit in sophomore year. Um, but yeah, the thing I talk about a lot on my channel is that it influences you so much. Like, you don't realize, especially if you're young, you don't realize how much it influences you until you're on the other end. And I see it happening to people my age around me, how much their ideas are influenced by social media and ideas that are just popularized on social media. They don't realize where their ideas have come from. And I know it's cheesy, but herd morality, Nietzsche, that's why I'm kind of a fan of him. I relate him to social media and social influence in general. I know morality is different than social influence, but the entire concept really interests me for that reason. Um, but yeah, it's just because it's so subconscious, you don't you can't really realize it unless you're very self-aware. And that's one of the main things I wanted to speak out against on my channel was how much social media influences you. And the way I've kind of framed it is that social media takes your free will. And by this, I don't mean literal free will. I don't even believe in free will. I believe in determinism. But by free will, I mean having conscious, intentional choices over your action, freedom of choice. Social media limits your perspective, limits what you are consuming and what you are perceiving, and therefore limits what you can actually choose over time. Because you're not going to choose something that you're not aware exists. And so it's kind of double-sided because I did mention earlier that social media introduces you to new ideas, but at the same time, these ideas are pushed unequally. Some ideas are pushed way more than others, and guess which ideas are pushed more to you? The ones that you are influenced by the most, the ones that you are predisposed to, that give you the most dopamine, because that's what gets you on the app for longer, and that's what companies want. So they push content to you that you're already predisposed to, you're more likely to be influenced by, and it's kind of like suddenly you have no free will and that you have no idea how much you have changed as a result of social media.
Hmm. Yeah. No, 100%. Well, not only the ones that give you dopamine, but also the ones that make you angry as
Oh
well.
yeah.
Um, anger is a anger is a very big currency on social media for people. Um, but you mentioned during COVID is when social media got quite not good for you.
Oh yeah.
When did the idea to start the car videos show up?
That was after I deleted social media my junior year of high school. I was actually, I was like, I was not doing well personally. Like, I went through like a breakup or whatever, and I just started doing car videos, and I used my nickname B because that name was always connected to my concept of my real self, my most authentic self, because I had always used it when I played like little cute video games like Undertale, Amori, Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley. Like that was always my name in those video games, and so this channel started off as a way to showcase my authentic self, which car videos. And that's why it's
Gotcha.
called B's Corner, because it's my corner of the internet.
Did you have apprehension about putting the first one out? I remember when I did the pod, the first couple, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be doing this. And now when I listen back to the first like 20 or 30 or however many are bad, probably up to like, I don't know, the last one too. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody let me do this.
I had zero apprehension. Okay, like I didn't think anybody was gonna watch it. I thought it was gonna have like 10 views. And I think my first video got like 500 overnight. And I was like, okay, it'll stop there. It'll stop there. And then I think it got like 1,000 or something. And I got like 1,000 consistently for like all my videos. And it was just like, okay, I'll keep doing it, I guess. Um, I don't know. And then and then people like kind of found out where I lived because you could see in the background of car videos like local restaurants or just local things. So I left for a long time, like a year, and I returned when I was 18.
That was probably a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so where did the evolution came? You mentioned a little bit at the beginning that your channel's evolved since then, and you mentioned a couple of things that you're interested in, Nietzsche and herd mentality and free will and some of these other things. So where did
Mhm.
where did these things pop into your kind of like they came across and you became interested in them? Because
Yep.
not all kind of computer science types are concerned with psychology in that sort of way.
Actually.
It doesn't usually fit the two personality types. Not to
Oh,
not
yes.
not to use
Carl
the
Jung here,
oh, there you go. That'll do
actually.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about in this book, I'm reading it right now, that he feels as though he has two personalities, two sides of him. The number one personality being the more analytical, scientific type, like a scientist, and the second being a more reflective, religious, thoughtful type. And I would say I relate with that very much. My first personality, my first side being computer science based, logical, kind of even hustle culture, ENTJ, if you're familiar with MBTI. My second personality would be reflective, psychological, philosophical. And toward during my junior year, I leaned more into the second personality. I always thought the first personality was the best, just like Carl Jung did when he was young, and he chose it as a career path. When in reality, he honestly leaned more towards the second. Obviously, his entire career is based off of psychology. And so I did a similar thing to him, turns out. So yeah, I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. Was it introduced to you by like somebody around you or like how did you
Oh,
or was it just like you came across it one day?
it's always been there. Like I
Hmm.
remember when I was a child, I I had YouTube when I was a child. I'm so young. Like you need to understand. I would just be watching like psychology videos, like the Psych2Go videos. I always thought it was so interesting. I thought the brain was interesting. Since sixth grade, I wanted to be a neuroscientist. Um, and then I didn't because I went vegan, but that's a different story. Uh, but yeah, because I thought that's a stable career path, and it's the brain, and I like the brain, so might as well.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Okay, so the things that you're into at the moment, you mentioned emotional. Well, actually, let's go with Nietzsche because we already mentioned him. So his herd mentality, that sort of subject. For the people that don't know what it is, can you give a brief like summary and then we can
I
kind of
have a
dive into
whole
it?
summary of him
Okay, perfect,
actually.
perfect, perfect.
We just did it on live stream, so I'll just read you that. So, Friedrich Nietzsche's main goal was to encourage people to create a new set of morals and values, independent of herd/slave morality that limits the natural satisfaction of your desires. He stated humans have an intrinsic, natural desire to dominate, coined the will to power. Humans can express will to power in two ways, that of a master or a slave. The master morality feels no reluctance to dominate and satisfy his own desires, creating his own moral code and value, his full expression of his natural self. The slave morality values compassion, pity, and guilt, keeping them inferior over time and prohibited from expressing their will. Guilt is a manifestation. Okay, that's kind of a random sentence. Essentially, slave morality values what has kept them inferior. I don't believe this. This is just what Nietzsche is saying. This is just a concept, okay? However, one must be careful about which path they take to master morality. A warrior figure will focus only on increasing his own power without herd morality, while a priest will amplify herd morality to feel superior over others who adopt it. Overall, Nietzsche advises to avoid dogma, craft your own values, and channel your will to power into inner evolution. So, forgive me if I absolutely disrespect Nietzsche's name here, but the way I like to interpret Nietzsche is by taking his concept of herd morality and not just including herd morality, but all of social influence. Herd social influence. And reading him, it makes sense if you kind of substitute that. And his hatred towards dogma especially makes sense. But yeah, I'm like getting off topic.
No, you're on
It's
topic. So what are
okay.
your thoughts on it? Like, what are your thoughts on that? What in terms of both it as a concept and then how it relates? Like, because you talk about these things on your channel, but and I've listened to some of the videos as well. A lot of it is very philosophical, but there are some parts that, like for me, I'm a lot more interested in what can people do with that information. But from this perspective, from what you are talking about, I want to learn more about the philosophical side, how you actually view it, because I mean, me
Hmm.
as the way that I am as an individual, I'm very, very pragmatic, and so I need to get out of my pragmatic brain sometimes. So, in terms of a concept, like, what do you think about that as a concept? And then at the end, I guess we can, or at the end of this subject, how people can relate it, how people can think about it. Um,
Yeah. Well, first about being pragmatic, actually. I am secretly the same way. I do care about as things actually being applicable to your life. That is like kind of the focus of my study streams as well. But the thing about being pragmatic is that you can't apply concepts well unless you understand them at a deep level. Like you need
100%.
every foundation, and that's why I like philosophy. Because if you can like switch out one foundation for another, then it will result in completely different actions, completely different thoughts, emotions, etc. Right? And so, I mean, herd morality, herd social influence. I don't think people realize just how much it limits them. A big critique of Nietzsche is that he's elitist, that he only wants that he kind of values people being narcissistic and satisfying their own desires. But the reasoning for this is that if you don't care about your will, you are you will be controlled by insecurity, pity, guilt, basically Christian morality. These things will hold you back. Like it's not good for the individual psyche to have these things hold you back. I don't think he's saying that people should be violent. Although you can twist his philosophy and say that he is encouraging it, it's very complicated, because I think if we give Nietzsche the biggest benefit of the doubt, and what I like to interpret it as is that crafting your own values with your own intentions and not just taking them from another worldview or another religion is the ideal for human self-expression and human existence. That's what I live by, and that's how it relates to Nietzsche.
Mm. What would you say for people that would argue that maybe from the religious side, right? People who are Christian would argue like, who are who am I, a human, to create my own moral code when one was given to me by Jesus or whatever religion that it happens to be. I'm most familiar with Christianity, so those are the examples that I'll use. But like, what would you say to that? Can the two mix at all,
I
intertwine?
mean, I don't think religion is inherently bad. I actually grew up Catholic. I'm not religious anymore, but I like a lot of the Christian beliefs. I honestly think religion should be viewed in a different way entirely. I feel as though religion should be viewed as a set of principles, a set of values that you sort of agree with and you live by, and follow the things that you agree with. It's like, it's just so hard because I think technically, if you just follow the things you agree with, you wouldn't be a follower of the religion. But I think that is the ideal if you do want a religion. Because if I think the ideal is if you are following a moral system, a set of rules outside of you, they at least all need to make sense. You can't just implement the Ten Commandments without understanding their reasoning. You can't just implement all of these moral systems, all of these values without understanding the reasoning and agreeing with it and also knowing why it's good for you as a human. It is kind of it's very humanistic psychology, I guess, but I digress again.
No, you're good. You fall somewhere maybe in the Jordan Peterson camp of I act as if there is a God type thinking.
Yes, kind of, yes. I know what he has a different definition of God. That God is um basically if you keep asking why are you doing this? Why are you doing this over and over? Like, okay, well, I'm drinking Diet Coke. Well, why am I doing that? For my taste buds. Well, why do you care about your taste buds? And it's like, oh, well, at the end of that questioning of why, that is your God. That is
Hmm.
your foundation. And so, in a way, he's not even Christian. I don't know if you've heard the discourse around that, but
A little
I think
bit.
he just poses as a Christian for his audience. But in reality, that's his version of God. And in a way, I agree with that. I wouldn't call it God. I would call it more so your central concept.
Hmm.
Um, but you mentioned a specific belief for Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure what it was.
No, he states often that he acts as if there is a God because who is he to say whether or not God exists? There's a
I
clip with him and George Janko that made the rounds a couple years ago. George, for people listening or people that don't know, is very Christian, and they had kind of a back and forth. I think it was a pretty interesting moment. I'm not going to be able to quote it off the top of my head, to be honest, but people should go look that up if they're interested. Um, okay, so kind of back to the herd morality type thing. I think for me, we see that there's a very, to me, simple example, and it's a political one, but I think it's um, w- after the 2016 election, and this might tie in, maybe not as much as you would, maybe not as much, but I think it does. After the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton is running around saying that the election was rigged and the Russians stole the election, um, and that like it's illegitimate. And then 2020, Trump does the same thing for different reasons. He says the election was rigged, it was illegitimate. And then the same people that were running around in 2016 saying that the election was illegitimate then turn around in 2020 and said, how dare you question the legitimacy of an election? You're undermining democracy, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, and you had the same group of people all believing one thing and then turning around and believing a 180-degree opposite of what they all
Yeah.
believed, air quotes, believed just a
Mhm.
couple of years prior. Um, and like you said about self-awareness, like one, the lack of self-awareness is kind of crazy,
To be
but
honest, I think
also,
I think self-awareness is kind of fake. I think it's more so self-acceptance. I think
okay,
everyone
go on
kind
that.
of know. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows themselves if they just think about it. But the thing blocking you from knowing yourself, from this self-awareness that you intrinsically have, is self-acceptance. You're just kind of scared of what you'll uncover. It's basically I think it's more so suppression rather than something being hidden from you. You know, I think
Mm,
everyone's intrinsically self-aware. Um, uh, Kind of like what Freud believes that um, thoughts you aren't aware of, the unconscious, they're suppressed. They're not necessarily like not there. I think you can access the unconscious in various ways. But anyway.
mm. No, let's go on the self-suppression or awareness kind of train because I think that that's probably true to a large extent. Um, because to look yourself in the mirror and kind of think of all the things that are not great about yourself, like you have to like that kind of sucks. Like you have to look in the
Mm,
mirror and be like, yeah, I suck, or this
yeah,
part of me sucks. And
exactly.
it's not really, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do for sure, but I also think that and I think that the first time, as with most things, the first time was probably the hardest. And then once you are able to do that a handful of times, then I feel like it kind of snowballs for you in a way.
Mm,
And you have a very good access of your own capabilities, your limitations, your flaws, and as an individual, and then you can kind of make decisions understanding that, like for instance, if you don't have a plan set for the day that you're just going to lay around and scroll. Like, what's my plan to not put myself in that position? Right? A lot of times I think people say, this is just me. I think people want to change their flaws, and I think that that's good. But also, I think that understanding yourself and being like, this is not,
continue.
this,
Continue, continue.
like, this is not going to change overnight. And I have to not allow myself to be in a position where this character trait could manifest itself. And so I avoid this situation. What, like, yeah,
What do you think that people should do about their flaws, their perceived flaws?
I think it depends on what it is. I think they should work on them for sure, right? It depends,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, so for example, if you are, um, let's say you get bored and so like on the weekends and you drink and you don't really want to drink, but like you're just like instead of figuring out that you're going to be bored, either you put maybe a non-alcoholic beer in the fridge or you make sure that you're going to be out at a certain time or you schedule something for the next morning like you schedule something with your friend like to go to the gym at 7 in the morning so like you actively put yourself in situations where like if you choose to do that it's gonna suck or you can't do it because you've got some other commitment that you're doing you've got to drive somewhere or what for the drinking example and
Mm-hmm.
so over time you can like kick the habit or kick the flaw by avoiding being in that situation enough times that like you don't do it anymore. For that
Yeah.
example specifically.
Just structure your environment for success.
Yes, exactly.
I think, I mean, in the case of alcoholism and addiction, I think you're right. That's probably a really good one. But more on the mental side, what I actually think procrastination and unhealthy behaviors, things that just don't serve you, a lot of it is lack of emotional regulation. I just made a video on emotional regulation. Essentially,
Good
what
segue.
oh no, literally, literally. I'm too good. Okay. Well, essentially what emotional regulation is, I think, is facing the emotion, kind of reasoning through it, using it to make a logical conclusion that you actually like, that you aren't forcing yourself to do. So in the case of productivity and procrastination, let's take your doom scrolling example. When you want to doom scroll, that's kind of emotional suppression, or like this sort of emotion like I want to doom scroll. I have this urge, and what you're doing is you're just empowering it blindly. And so you aren't looking at the emotion, the urge at all. There's no regulation happening because you just let it go through your mind. You don't question it in any way. And so ideally, I think one would look at the urge and think, well, if I do this, these are going to be my consequences. Just for a second, over time, it becomes kind of instantaneous in your mind, but originally, I think it's much better to write it down. But yes, you kind of don't trust yourself at first because the way your brain works, you perceive your environment, and the way you perceive your environment is what brings about these urges, meaning that these urges are not based in reality to exist. To exist, they don't need to be based in anything that's true. So logically, one would look at what is true, what are you being biased by, and making a conclusion, an action that you actually do believe in. Let's say you're lying in bed. You're like, I want to doom scroll. Why do I want to doom scroll? Well, I've been really burnt out recently. Like I just want a break. I want some entertainment. I dread going to the gym. I dread waking up. I dread going out of bed. And you're suppressing all those things just in the act, in the desire, in the urge to doom scroll. You're not facing it at all. And then you just empower that urge. But ideally, you would look at all of those things and say, well, like, well, how can I make getting out of bed more enjoyable? I still want to do these things for my future self. Like, I really do. I care about my future. So then you start tapping into that a little bit more, but you also integrate the negative part of you, the part that's like, I want a break, I want entertainment, I feel overworked. And you don't invalidate that in any way. Instead, you use it to fuel an action. Hypothetically, this action would look like, okay, well, I'll get out of bed and maybe before I go to work, I'll take a little break somehow. I'll do something that I really enjoy, or I'll make sure during my break today I'll do something I'm passionate about. And then so suddenly you give yourself an incentive to act that you actually care about doing. And it's like, uh, I think it's hard to talk about because I'm trying to be general and vague so that this applies to different scenarios, but it is case to case, and that's what I tried explaining in my video, so go watch my video. Uh, but yeah.
What's a good mechanism for people in terms of the emotional regulation? So you mentioned writing it down. I'm sure you've got another. All right, read it. Yeah,
Oh
there you
my
go. Read
God,
it off.
that's
Read it off.
so funny. I write everything down. Okay, so I've got a five-step model here.
All right,
I
go
meant
for it.
I mentioned this in the video, but number one, get number one, understand the emotion information. So that's asking yourself the question, like, what is the emotion and what is it telling you? So if you're sad, it's, well, why are you sad? Well, I feel disrespected. That's the perspective of the emotion. I was disrespected by my friend. And so you just keep that in mind. That's the first step. The second step is, what is the motivation? What is that perspective trying to get you to do? What, yeah, what is it trying to get you to do? And usually this motivation, the second, is very black and white. Like, okay, my friend disrespected me. I should cut them off. Like, let me block them. Like, they don't know my worth. Okay. The third one is judgment. This is where you're going to get your conclusion and an action that you actually believe in. It's going to be a gray area. How can I rationally interpret this situation and emotion? And by rational, I mean the economics definition where something is in your best interest in the end. Okay. What action will align with the information of the emotion and your values? So like you take a step back, you're like, you know what? I really do. I really do care about this friend, but I hate that they disrespected me. And it's true, like I feel disrespected. So what's the best thing I can do from that? Well, I'm gonna communicate. I'm gonna express. I'm gonna say, you know what? I I didn't appreciate this. I really didn't. I think you were in the wrong here. Like that's my perspective. But also judge your perspective because remember, it doesn't have to be based in reality. It's very black and white. So that's what also you should be doing during this conclusion step. Um, and then sort of plan an action that you're proud of that integrates both sides, you know. And number four, redirection. So, what can this emotion signal instead? What does this emotion show about you, what you value, what you care about, and how can you express that value in future actions? So, in this scenario, it would be like, well, I really care about people not overstepping my boundaries in this specific way. And so going forward in the future, you can tell yourself, well, I want to make this pretty clear to my other friends. You know, I'm not gonna threaten them, but I'll make it clear. I'll communicate that desire. And you know, it's all I'm saying all this with like, please be rational. Don't be like uh just thinking about yourself, you know. That's the hard part about psychology. It's like everything you say can kind of be misinterpreted in a bad way to fuel negative behavior. And so I feel like I have to include all these caveats. But last step, number five is just reiteration. How will you interpret this emotion the next time that it comes up? The next time a friend disrespects you, like what are you gonna do? Well, I'm gonna I'm gonna know to step back. I'm gonna know to judge the situation. I'm gonna know to express myself. And then I know that this is also just a signal that I care about this. I care about what they disrespected. And so it's not really a bad thing on my part. I don't have to feel bad about myself and insecure if somebody else disrespects me. It should be instead be a signal that I value this thing. And so it's kind of this fifth step is meant to rewire your learning process. So what happens when you feel an emotion is that your amygdala activates. It fires neurons in your amygdala fire. And when that happens, a fire to your hippocampus. If a neuroscientist watches this, I'm probably wrong, but I'm generally right. Your hippocampus also activates, and that encodes a memory of the emotional ex
Did we lose you again?
Okay, I don't know why that happened.
That's okay. I'll
Uh,
have two cutouts.
true.
And we're back. Okay, keep going.
Okay, but yeah, the hippocampus. Uh, when the emotion. So the purpose of the hippocampus, the function of the hippocampus is to learn primarily from your emotional experiences that your amygdala activates. And so this system of amygdala and hippocampus, it's very emotionally based learning experiences. And so what this fifth step is supposed to do is supposed to rewrite that learning experience into something positive, into something that actually aligns with your end goals and values in the future. That's my
So
2 cents.
I had a couple thoughts about that. The first is that people can be very good at rationalizing things, regardless of what it is,
Oh,
good or bad. So how do you account for that? And then the second one is you mentioned like make sure that your decision is aligned with your values. How, so for me, like I don't know if I could necessarily define values, but I would think that I'm a fairly consistent person with how I judge situations, right? So like if you have set of values and principles in which you are interpreting the world off of, then you can judge each situation as it comes from like I think what's the term called? First principles thinking or something like that.
I've never actually heard of that.
Um, so like part of what comes with your five-step thing is like people need to know what that is within themselves because
Oh,
otherwise it doesn't like it works, but it doesn't work all the way. Because you can say, well, actually, in this case, it would be better for me if blank, and then you can rationalize a bunch of things as to why, like the devil on your shoulder, right? Because exactly what you said before
yeah.
about take a second to think about what could actually go wrong if you do this. That's like, I have that, I think, kind of inherently, which I've been very lucky about. Like, do I really need, like, oh, I'm feeling like I need some dopamine, so I'm gonna order DoorDash and then like think about it. It's like, no, I don't actually need to spend that money. Where other people would click buy, right? Which is fine, right? It's not, there's no judgment here, but just from this, just to illustrate the example that you laid out or the concept that you laid out. So what are your thoughts on that, the rationalization thought, and then like the having a grounding set of principles that you can then go forth and judge each situation on. So then you're consistent. Because also, as you know, like if you're consistent, like people around you value consistency um in terms of your emotions and how you react to certain things, right? Like if I'm in a soccer game and something goes wrong and I'm level-headed and calm one day and then the next day I'm like kicking the soccer ball at the ref or whatever, like people like coach is going to be like, I can't play you if you're going to get a red card because you did a crazy thing, like you anyways, you understand this. So like what are your thoughts on those two things?
Yeah, I think a good example is, let's say a mother is mad at her child, like her child misbehaved. They genuinely did. But then the mother like overreacts. She punishes the child unnecessarily, like in an unnecessary way. And the mother is going to be rationalizing like, "Oh, this is for the greater good. My child is going to learn from this." It doesn't matter if my child is obviously crying and very upset, like they're going to learn from this. And that's biased, obviously, because you're not looking at this situation uh, logically. You're ignoring that the child is obviously distraught and that they're not going to learn a lesson from this in the end. And you're just rationalizing your own action. And I did not include this in the video, but this is a separate concept I've talked about, and it's the idea of being driven by your ego versus being driven by your values, yourself. I'll get into defining values in a second. But being driven,
Your Wi-Fi conked again. All right, three cuts to make. Maybe if I get it, if I remember to do it. Let me. Okay,
okay,
go ahead.
okay, but being driven by the ego is inherently biased. Um, God, I haven't covered this topic in a long time. I wrote a whole like article on it. But let me see. I'm like, let me get my notes on my computer now. Oh my God. Ego driven. You use Notion?
Nope.
Oh my God. I organize all my notes on there.
Should I?
Yes, if you use it in the right way. Because what it does, it kind of creates a little website in a way. You can click on like hyperlinks to different notes. And I like that I can organize it in that way.
Mm, well, I should probably
Identity.
start taking notes.
Oh yeah.
I don't prepare a
Um,
lot for these just because, like, the more that I do the research, then the less curious I become because I already researched all the topics. And so I don't want that to come through as like, I want it to come through that I'm genuinely curious about the topic and the person because then otherwise, like, I think I've done that a couple times and then it's been not like I've just kind of phoned it in anyways. Um,
Really?
Notion it's called. Okay, you find your notes on it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I remember. It is it is inherently surrounded around your image. That's my definition for ego. So this is my definition. In the effort to solidly, reliably relate to the world, the ego develops with a characteristic into an identity or even personality for the purpose of appearing as or perceiving the self as good, powerful, right, special, safe, or morally superior. So it is the attempt to turn experience, that any experience, into a fixed identity that must be protected or proven. And so in this example, that's exactly what is going on. Your ego is being held by, your ego is this image that must be protected, this image that you're a good mother, that you know how to handle your children. And when you cling to this identity, to this image so tightly, that makes you inherently biased. And so that's what I would instruct someone to do, to not be biased and to actually view things rationally, to at least be aware of the ego. Being completely like not ego driven is very hard. It's a whole different like Buddhist concept, but at least being aware of it. So some ways you can identify it. Number one being image management. If you're defensive about your identity or how other people perceive you, if you over-identify with like your persona, how your roles in the world, your social roles, that is uh, that is going to be inherently ego-driven. Number two, comparison. Anytime you compare yourself, there has to be an image that you are comparing with the other person's image. And so that is having an ego as well. That is being ego driven. And some emotional tells. If you're ruminating, this is how it relates to emotional regulation, I guess. You're ruminating, you're you feel as though your identity is being threatened and you don't know who you are, being defensive. Uh, Ego comes in when the mind tries to like stabilize the feeling, explain it, judge it, resolve it through identity, try to explain the feeling through identity, through what this means about you. And what that leads to over time is just bias. And like I mentioned earlier, this just naturally happens to humans. Uh, we all have egos. I have like I've gone into the path of looking into how to not have an ego. It's basically very hard. You have to have a lot of different perspective changes. Uh, but yeah. And then there's a fourth great way to determine if you are driven by ego and being biased. And it's asking yourself the question, what am I trying to protect or prove right now? And if the mother asked herself that question, well, what am I trying to protect? I'm trying to protect this image of me being a good mother. And that's making me biased because now I can't see that my child is like having a breakdown on the floor. And I think that could apply to several situations. I haven't immediately thought about it, but I think so. I think it's a pretty good standard to apply.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people fall into that last protect or prove one in terms of becoming defensive about stuff. Um, I mean, which makes sense, right? People have wronged you. You're trying to prove people wrong.
It
You're
makes
trying to,
sense, but it's unhealthy over time for
oh,
them,
for
for the
sure.
individual,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I think it goes into the thing that I say sometimes on the show is like you have to be undeniable in who you are. And like you can still be obviously you're still gonna have the ego and that sort of thing, but like it kind of cuts through some of these like I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I don't have to there's no need to be defensive because I'm secure in myself and the people that care about me the most, spouse, family, whatever, know that this is the type of person that I am. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot more peaceful that way. When somebody, you feel like somebody's wronged you, you're like, okay, well, they had a bad day or whatever, and you move on with your life. Makes things a
Mhm.
lot simpler to me. Um, I know you got to run in a little bit, but I did want to ask you about your preparation for your own videos? Because often they're long live streams. You called them like study streams.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
like how do you pick the topics and then how do you prepare for those? And how do those go? Like you got people in the chat saying agreeing, disagreeing, like, but sometimes like do you script them out or like how does that work?
Oh, I cannot script them. They're like 2 hours and they're live. I mean,
Hmm.
that'd be kind of awkward scripting. But all I do for those is just I pick a couple good sources. I like using the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy if it is anything philosophy related. And if it's Eastern philosophy, it's very hard. Like I did one on the Buddhist theory of identity, Anatman. Oh my God. It's just those one the translations it's hard to find. And two, it's very much a primary source thing. The thing with those live streams, I can't use primary sources, like maybe like a quote here and there. But I have to find actually good secondary sources, and philosophy is pretty easy because Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I think there's like an international encyclopedia of philosophy that's great as well. Um, but honestly, I go to Wikipedia, I go down to the references, I look at those, and then that's where I get my sources.
Nice. Nice, nice. And then what made you venture into the podcast game? So context for those listening, at some point I will be on uh the shoe will be on the other foot,
Oh
on
yeah,
on B's
actually,
corner.
you'll be on B's Corner before this comes out.
Yes. All right. Well, still
Yeah.
go check it out anyways. But what made you want to kind of venture into podcast land where there's I mean, I guess you were kind of doing it already. Like the definition of a podcast is very whatever, but
Oh
into
yeah.
the version where that you're talking to other people and having conversations and um obviously well not obviously, but obviously to me and you, your first one was our mutual friend Samir. Um Shout out to Samir. But what made you want to venture into like interview conversation land?
I mean, someone just suggested it to me, and I was like, why not? Because Samir is literally a physicist. He's an amazing, well-spoken guy, and he wrote a book about free will, which is something I think about all the time and I talk about all the time. And it was just perfect. And so I just got connected with Samir. Oh, oh my God.
I paused the recording at the right time this time.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Somebody just suggested it to me, and I was like, sure. And then Samir after the interview was just like, "Oh, would you like to go on another podcast?" And so I thought, "Sure." And then I'm like, maybe I'll just keep this a regular thing. I thought it was gonna be a one-time thing. I have no idea where I'm going with this. I I still I'm thinking once a week there'll be a guest, a podcast interview. But yeah, it's very new right now. I honestly don't have a concrete vision
Yeah, just take it as it goes. It makes it
hmm
simpler. I mean, to me, anyways.
for sure.
Um, I had friends on in the beginning, and then people started reaching out, and then I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll keep talking to people. Now I joke that I've given myself a free undergrad college worth of education by doing this. Um, No, it's cool though. It's cool. Okay, so where should if people want to learn more about what it is that you have going on, and I think maybe this might be a good time to wrap so the internet doesn't conk out again.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but for people that are interested in or in the subjects that you're interested in or want to hear more about what you have to say, where should they go to find you?
YouTube, definitely. My emotional regulation video has been doing well. Apparently, it's helping a bunch of people, so highly recommend my most recent video.
No bias there.
And and no, I'm using objective metrics. Uh, but anyway, then also my Substack. I rarely kind of post on there, but when I do post, it's good. Like I make sure to put a good message out. And I have a whole article, like I was saying before, on ego-driven versus self-driven identity and how one could actually start to walk upon the path of self-driven identity and how one can like get there eventually. But yeah,
Nice. Is
those
there
two.
anything else that I'm sure you've got loads of thoughts on loads of different things, but anything that on the stuff that we covered, any last thoughts or things that you want to add in?
Mm, I think everyone should look into humanistic psychology. I was just researching it yesterday because I realized how much of our modern ideas are shaped by this one field in psychology. For example, do you believe in this idea of an underlying self that you should like work towards? Like there's like this underlying true perfect self that everyone has intrinsically. And so if you just uncover all the flaws and all the bad, then you can get to this self, kind of like a higher self type of concept. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're kind of in the more pop psychology lane, it's like people talk about your best
Yeah,
self or whatever. Um, I
it's
I think that
I've
that's
seen it.
true, but I don't know how. I feel like aiming at perfection, like your perfect self is, I mean, you only are the person that you are, and you can only like. So I don't know. I think that while having a good aim maybe is like,
Okay.
well, is I think it's a good aim, but I mean, yeah, I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah, I've seen it in hustle culture, in New Age spirituality, and Hinduism. I think it originates from Hinduism, the Atman, or I don't know how to say it. That pronunciation was probably horrible. Uh, but yeah, ideas like that. I really just encourage people to try to find what the origin of their ideas are, because when you find out the origin of your ideas, you realize how arbitrary it is because you
Mm,
view the world in such a specific way. But when you realize there's alternatives, that like that's not the truth, like that's not what everybody believes. It's not objective in any way. It's kind of a perspective. It's like, wait, oh, I never knew that. And I've kind of been against this idea of like the underlying higher true self for a while, but I never knew it had some origins in humanistic psychology.
mm.
Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. That's what I encourage people to do.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think kind of there's always a version of you that could be improved and could be better. Um, Definitely in terms of how it impacts yourself, how it impacts your family and those around you, your community and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. The way I
Um,
like to view improvement is that it's an infinite bridge, and because it's infinite, there's no really improvement. There's no going forward and there's no going backward. And so the reason that one would even strive to improve to begin with is just for the meaningfully drivenness of it. It gives you meaning within itself. Anyway, that's what my next video is gonna be on.
all right, fair enough. Well, isn't
Uh
that's what they say, right? It's the journey rather than the destination.
oh yes, but I'm gonna connect it to the self. So cheesy. It's gonna be called the divine self, and it's gonna be connected. Plato's gonna be in there, uh Buddhism, Hinduism's gonna be in there. So that'll
Mm,
be cool.
all
But
right.
yeah.
Fair enough. For those listening, appreciate your time. Links will be in the description as always. And the new merch that is available somewhere on the YouTube channel. It's linked somewhere. I don't know how you guys see it. I see it in the. All right, I digress. It's there somewhere. Go look at it and buy it if you want. Or if you don't, that's cool too. But you
I
should.
just noticed your hat. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, this one actually was a Christmas gift. I need to get ball caps on like hats like this on there. There's beanies on there, hoodies and stuff, t-shirts, mugs. What else is on there? There's like a desk mat for like your computer or your
Oh my God,
mouse
I have a
pad.
Fortnite one.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so people should go
Anyway,
buy it. Yeah, or don't, but please do.
uh,
Um, all right. Well, on the world's most awkward outro of all time. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you want to watch another episode like this one, click there. If you want to subscribe, click there.